Hello, we're from Zizanio News. We're like journalists for the festival, and we know that you're a director from the film Spilt Milk.
Correct, yes. Hi, I'm Brian Durnin, director of Spilt Milk, as you say, which just screened about 10 minutes ago. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you too. First of all, could you please give us a resume of your film?
Like a really short for those who didn't have the chance to be with us.
Spilt Milk is a film about Bobby O'Brien, who's a 12-year-old boy who wants to be a detective, and he's growing up in 1980s Dublin. And at the time, there was a very bad drug problem. It was heroin, had just been introduced to the city. So his brother goes missing, and he goes to try and find him. And in the process, he finds out some dark truths about the world he lives in.
Okay. It was a really nice verdict you gave us. So, something that was also asked in, but it's a really interesting thing. So, what is a spilt milk? Like, I personally thought that it was about the heroine itself, you know.
No, we went through a couple of titles for this film, and some were more specific to the drugs problem, but we didn't want the drugs theme to be the defining theme of this film, because it's a film about family and community and love overcoming very dark and trying circumstance. So spilt milk, in English, the phrase "there's no point crying over spilt milk" means that once something has happened, you can't take it back, so it's done. So you now have to move on and move on with life and learn the lesson. So Bobby learns a lesson in this film, and he starts as a boy who thinks he knows everything and knows about the world around him, but actually he's not seeing some things, and some things are being kept from him. So he goes on the journey, and on the other side, he's learned some lessons and uncovered some dark truths about his community, about his brother, but he's understood how much his mother and his father, how much his family supports him and love him. So there's a positive message, a message of hope at the end of this film. So that was in a nutshell.
Now that you talked about family, his mother, his father, did the mother at first not express her feelings towards the situation, or didn't react to that because of the social shame that was going around at the block or something? Or is there some other reason behind that?
I think you've nailed it there. In one sense, initially, she doesn't want to accept that the problem is there. Then she knows the problem is there, and she has to deal with it. And the way that they chose to deal with the situation at that time was to get anyone who was involved with the drugs, that's the dealers and the users, out of the flats, which for me is unimaginable, to put my own child out of the house. I can't imagine, but this is like a last resort when nothing else works. That's what they were doing. So she takes that step, but obviously it's incredibly painful. And then in terms of her journey and her arc, by the end, when she's standing on stage, she's got nothing left to lose. So I think as a person, Maura is incredibly strong, but doesn't realize it and hasn't been empowered by the people around her. She's always saying, no, I can't do it. It's not me. It's someone else needs to do this and be in charge. And then when she finally can't take it anymore, she realizes that she has great strength and can be a leader. She's a brilliant leader, and everyone admires her when she does it. So, yeah.
And now that you say it, you can also receive a feministic message of your film, because the kids that suddenly got into heroin, some of them died, homes were destroyed. All of them also had fathers, but they didn't speak up, they didn't believe that something could change. Only the mothers who, they go through all of this and they have to not express anything. They're afraid, as you told us before, and Iωάννα, to express themselves because they don't have to. They have to not ashame the family. They have to seem strong, even though, you know, it's not necessarily a stereotypical woman. And yes, it's really nice how the love of mothers to their child is being reflected in such a way, you know, that they will go the extra mile, you know, going out yelling while they are used to staying at home and crying on them, you know, by themselves.
Yeah, I think when Cara was writing this, that's what she was most compelled by, was the stories were all from the women she was interviewing, and the movement was, we were trying to be as true as possible to the movement and what happened, and it was led by the mothers. They were the ones who spearheaded this and started, initiated all that grassroots action and those protests, and they kind of slowly, the men became more involved. So it was led by the mothers, which is, as you say, it's just such testament to like their strength and the fact that they wouldn't sit back and let this happen. They were going to do something no matter what. They felt they had to.
Also, another thing I wanted to ask is that we saw the police caring about children not going to school, but not about children taking drugs. Was there a personal advantage for the police if they let that happen?
Yeah, so we had another version of this film where it was less kind to the police, actually. There was only, so now we have one good policeman who wants to change things and one who's seen too much and doesn't believe in change anymore. So he's wary of life, you know, and not doing a good job really, because he's actually hardened by the lifestyle. But I suppose what Cara, the writer, was trying to point out was that sometimes they get hung up on these little, they have ideas about a community, and they will stigmatize and make assumptions about the kids from that community. So they want to see them in school because they think, oh, they're gonna like not be interested in being educated. But Bobby's a really smart kid, you know, who's like really good at school. He's getting out of school for a reason that day, you know. But actually, when it comes to these incredibly heartbreaking situations with drugs, they didn't know what to do, and therefore they just kind of, I'm not saying they left the drug dealers alone, but they didn't act fast enough. And so at this point, that's why the parents had to stand up. They got involved because the action from the police wasn't enough. They weren't coming into the community. They weren't kicking out the dealers themselves, you know. But it did change, you know. They did become more involved. It's always evolving. But yeah, it's a really good point though, that they seem to care more about them ditching school, you know.
Yes, and unfortunately, you know, in the same story, the police could also have been involved in the, you know, drug dealing. They could cover the drug dealers and have some personal benefit from it. And generally, you know, we asked this question because we thought that maybe you perceived it in that way, that, you know, maybe they couldn't do something, you know, because many times the police just doesn't have power in front of like big cliques and mafias, you know, and the criminals.
Yeah, I think that was the case. Really, it was they didn't have enough manpower to get in and stop what was happening. Oh, sorry, I should speak into this. I think at the time, first of all, they didn't understand the problem. They didn't understand how destructive heroin was. You know, they knew about the other drugs, but this was a whole new thing. And also, they didn't have the manpower to send people in to get amongst the drug dealers to go undercover, really, which they needed to do, which they did do over time. And so the communities were left to like fend for themselves a little bit, a lot maybe. But the broader point is maybe that there are certain communities which can be seen as a lost cause, like not, you know, like it gets to a point, and that's what the policeman who's not the not nice policeman is basically that kind of idea that you get wary. Oh, just these guys, just let them do it because it's a community that we don't even want to bother with. It's too much trouble, And I think that was part of what Cara was trying to say with this film, and certainly when all our conversations about them were, we wanted to give some measured idea of what the police force were trying to do, but also maybe highlight that it can become an issue where a certain community just is tarred with that brush or painted that way,
And our last question is, did the sudden drug explosion have a connection with the constant firings that were taking place?
Sorry, can you say that question again?
Suddenly a lot of people were drug addicts, and also a lot of people were getting fired at that point. So is there a connection between that?
Yeah, the economic, 100%. Yeah, so it was just unfortunate timing that's when heroin came in, and became available, came on stream. So they brought it into these communities where the kids had very little to do because there's no jobs, very few jobs. Most people were emigrating as soon as they could, going to the UK, to London mostly, to New York. I mean, wherever they could go. And those who were left behind were like, what's my life gonna be? It wasn't very hopeful as a teenager in those times, and now you're talking about where this film is set is a very working class community where, again, they wouldn't have had great resources at their disposal. Those areas weren't very well cared for. There wasn't green spaces. It was tough living. So you bring heroin in, and it's an escape. It's just it was easier to get those kids involved in it because of the lack of opportunity and the lack of hope, I guess, for sure.
And, it was a way of escaping both mentally, but also it was a way, I guess, for a lot of people to, have an opportunity, a phenomenal opportunity to make money, to fix their lives, maybe, because people who not get in trouble, who get involved with drugs and they go through this really messed up situation, are always people who have been hit really hard by life. And so there was an economical crisis in Ireland. Mm-hmm. And did you live it personally?
Yeah, I was quite young though. So I was born in '78. So I was 6 years old when this movie takes place. So I remember it through very hazy memories. A lot of the images. A lot of the production design stuff was from family photographs. I went and found them, and photographs of the character that Lawrence plays is based on my dad. Do you know what I mean? The mustache, everything, he's styled like my dad was in the 80s. So it was definitely a time where we didn't have a lot of money, and there wasn't. I guess there was a sense in some ways that this is where Irish punk music like U2 and all that came from, and there was a sense of the youth needed to do something to rebel or get up and get out, but there was also the possibility that you would just turn to drugs because it was something to do, like you say, a way to escape from it. And then the drug dealers, we were very conscious that we didn't want Paddy to be a 2D villain, just one-note guy. He's actually could have maybe been good at being a salesman in something else, in some other way, but he's realised that opportunity, like you say, and he's keen to make some money out of it, and at some point he's realized he's going to have to be ruthless to be successful. So it's quite sad, actually, the Paddy character. And, like, you know, we didn't want to let him off too easy either. I mean, he's portrayed pretty bad in the movie, but we also were like, he's charming when he's talking to Bobby. So he's got charisma. He's like, he could be a cool guy.
I mean, every drug dealer is really, it's a really sad story. It's a broken story, you know. Actually, children, every child that is involved in this industry, you could say, you know, and the cycling of drugs, you know, they're also, because many times they really get targeted, and not enough reasoning is given about why these kids are pushed to take this path, you know, because nobody with enough opportunities would be keen to sell drugs for a living, you know.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's definitely it's a dangerous, you know, kind of way to live your life. But I think it's really interesting you picked up on the subtext, which is that Paddy would have been brought in by people and convinced to do this by someone else, you know, and like that's exactly what's unfortunately it's still happening. So the real story is that a guy like Paddy would be the guy in that flat block making some okay money, but there's somebody above him making really good money, and then somebody way above making the serious money. But below Paddy, there's also kids, like actual 11-year-old kids running on bikes, you know, from one person to the other, because the cops don't stop them. So they bring in runners really young, you know, like, so we never say it in the movie, but that's what Paddy is looking for Bobby to do for him. Yes. If he gets friendly enough with him, that he go, maybe just drop this for me somewhere, you know, and that's really dark. But it's true, so we wanted to reflect that in some way, you know.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for being here today. We really did enjoy your film. Hope we see you again here, and we were Zizanio News.
Thank you so much.
Μας βρείτε στα social, Facebook και Instagram, Zizanio News. Να διαβάσετε τα άρθρα μας, συνεντεύξεις μας και τις κριτικές μας στην εφημερίδα Πρωινή, καθώς και στο blog μας www.zizanionews.wordpress.com. Και μείνετε συντονισμένοι γιατί ακολουθούν όμορφα πράγματα.